Okay, so let's do the final part about looking for a full-time job. So ideally, you can get some internships and such. And looking for a full-time job is a full-time job, and this is going to be in your last year of college and stuff. And this is a challenging process, right? So I would just apply broadly, and don't worry if you don't exactly match the job description. It's free to apply. Obviously, it's good to have referrals, but even at companies you don't have referrals, just do your best and just apply as broadly as you can, because again, these job descriptions and titles are just ambiguous and such. So just apply. And don't have your heart set on any one place. Successful applicants apply to dozens of places. The fine print there is keep track of it in a spreadsheet, right? Just keep track of all your applications. People just apply to lots of places, and it's just kind of part of the process. But that said, yes, apply broadly, apply to a lot of places, and you have to send your stuff online for a lot of things. But that said, do everything you can to get an employee at each company to give you a referral or to send your name or resume to recruiters. Like, just do everything you can to do that. I know you're not going to be able to do that with every company, right? Because people routinely apply to dozens of companies. You're not going to know someone at all the companies and stuff. So at a few of them, if you do, that's great. And because it's the fact that most of these job openings prioritize referrals, like above all else. So, again, this is the, connections and stuff, right? It's all fair game. Like, do everything you can to do this and email people, message people. And the worst thing that happens is that they don't respond to you because they just, have too many emails. That's fine. Like, it's not a bad thing to email people, right? Like, if they don't respond to you, that's okay. I mean, other people might. Okay, so some ideas about company size. So this is pretty typical. So in general, if you work at a smaller company, you have more varied and diverse roles, right? So N equals 1 is kind of you're working for yourself, you're independent, you're a freelance designer. The plus there is you have a lot of flexibility, but there's all, the minus is a lot of uncertainty, right? You're really looking for work, right? You're looking for contract work all the time. Some people thrive in that environment, but it's pretty hard, right? Because you're basically independent. You have to take care of everything yourself. A tiny startup, there's variety, there's growth opportunities if the startup does well, but there's also uncertainty. The minus also is uncertainty, right? So a smallish design agency. These are more niche design agencies. They're hard jobs to get because they're small, but those people working at those places are often really happy because they can work directly with clients. They have a company they work for, but it's fairly small and they actually get to do really core design work. But those jobs are very selective, right? These design agencies are extremely, extremely selective. Most common are these in-house designers at a big company, right? So you're working at a big technology company or companies in other sectors. You're a regular employee of a bigger company and you have a more fixed role, right? So usually you're doing one part of that design process. Whereas if you're a freelancer or you're working at a small company, you can do many different parts, right? More fine print. Okay. Another thing I'd encourage you to do is to look beyond the usual tech companies, right? So especially if you're looking online and looking at people's portfolios and the most high profile people are working at these kind of big technology or app companies and such. But the thing is, I think there's so many different industries that have a need for design work that aren't the most newsworthy ones that are all in the news, right? So here's some examples of sectors. So retail and logistics, right? Kind of back end retail and logistics that basically powers all of our economy. Government IT. So a lot of agencies contract with the government in various fields. It doesn't, it's not in the news and everything. It's all behind the scenes. Contractors, again, people working in the government. Science labs occasionally have, designy user research sort of roles or other kinds of user-facing roles. Nonprofits, social good kind of nonprofits and such. And the fine print down here I said is that HCI UX design skills are in demand, but those sectors can't attract the most experienced designers. So you can make a big impact as a new hire. Again, this is a challenge, right? Because these sectors might not have as much of a design or HCI culture, but if there are people there that are open to this and they hire you, you can actually have a really big impact, right? Because if you are one of 1,000 designers at a tech company, you're doing a very fixed thing. But you can make a big impact on these things. And also looking beyond the typical roles is important because these, big company typical roles are really competitive to get. So again, just applying broadly is really important, especially for your first job, right? You just want to get a job and get something on your resume and build that up. Another thing is to look beyond pure design jobs, right? So this is just one data point, right? So, a few years ago, this is already old, most designers said that coding was an important skill, and very informal survey, in 2005, 10 years earlier, very few would have said so. And this is something that has changed a lot in the field in the last I would say decade, is that in the old days, right, design and coding or engineering was not that related at all, right? Designers were more associated with artists, but now designers are very much integrated with engineering and coding and programming. So the ideal ratio at a company is you have one designer for every, say, 5 programmers or 5 engineers. But in reality, there's probably only one designer for every 10 to 30 programmers. In reality, the big reality is that there aren't that many pure design jobs, right? Because you really don't need 20 people to be doing a design, right? You probably only need one person to do that thing. And you need a lot more people to do programming and deployment and all the engineering work. That's just a lot more labor intensive. So because of that, a good adjacent role is a front-end software developer, web developer, mobile developer. So front-end basically means you're doing user-facing parts, kind of front user-facing parts, like user interfaces and interactions and stuff, and you're writing code. Here, what I said is build up your design portfolio on the side while working, and then you can learn from designers on your team, like the one designer on your team, and then maybe you can transition to more design role later. Another reason why doing a front-end or software development thing may be good is that many places still don't value design, but they do value programming, right? This is much more well-known. So it's your chance to kind of sneak this design thinking ideas into your workplace as a front-end developer. So I think like I mentioned earlier, I think some of the people with a really compelling backgrounds nowadays are people who can do design and some front-end software development, web programming, some coding. Okay. So we're getting near that. So what if you can't find a full-time job right away? So again, the job market, both for internships and for full-time, is getting more and more competitive, right? And a lot of people more and more people are majoring in HCI and design for many schools, and it's just really competitive to get a job. So again, don't panic. One idea is do freelance or these contract jobs, right? You can do more of these kind of independent jobs part-time. The reason why you do this is to make some money, obviously, and also to build up your portfolio, right? And connections, right? So the more jobs you can do that's relevant, anything that you can do, just you can put in your portfolio. And also you can use those to build up connections, because those are going to be people that can refer you to future jobs. I know that the beginning of your career is the hardest part, I think, just because, how do you get started, right? There are tens of thousands of students here on this campus, and, there are hundreds of campuses, in the US alone, right? And every year, think about every year, there are hundreds of thousands of college students graduating, wanting to get these junior entry-level jobs, and it's really competitive. So if you can't get something full-time right away, think about doing kind of more freelance work and stuff. It is a challenge, of course, but even my TA's example, which I love, the DoorDash example, which I love, was that even if you have to do something that's not directly design related, the nice thing about this HCI and design as a field is that it permeates everything we do, right? He worked as a DoorDash driver. We have students who drive other services and stuff. Every facet of our lives are ruled by these mobile phones and computers and apps and technology. So I think that there's an opportunity for anything you do to relate to your portfolio, right? If you're doing something in healthcare, you're volunteering in a nursing home to take care of the elderly, and you look at the technological implications there. There are just so many sectors. Going back to here, there are just so many sectors that I think healthcare is actually a really good thing I should put in here too. There are so many sectors where I changed my slide right now, where there are just opportunities. Can I even spell? Healthcare IT is huge, huge, huge. There are just so many sectors where you have such an important role of technology, but where technology has just not been valued as much. So I think healthcare is actually going to be this is something that I would bet on in the coming decades, right? I mean, people are living longer, lives, lifespans are getting longer, and everyone is connected online. And if you think about, even if you don't interact with a lot of healthcare IT, I bet your parents do, right? People getting at your parents' age, getting into their 40s, 50s, and 60s, everybody's going to collide with healthcare IT. Everyone's going to collide with it, right? Because we're all going to get old and have ailments of some sort. And you will find that the more you interact with this, the more you realize, holy cow, these apps and these information systems, these services, like they are literally decades old, and they're just, there are people who are trying to figure out how to modernize them. So if you're working in this field, I think you can find really interesting opportunities to do projects that you can propose better ideas for that. So again, just broadly thinking laterally, any kind of job you can get. I would just say, even if it's not a design job, like if you're just working in some kind of job, you can, and you're interested in going into this field, you can find some way. To make it work, and that's why I think I'm really excited about the field, because it really permeates. Anything that we do with technology, this will be relevant for.